Alright, here we are, Sailing Vessel Trilogy. Alright, and I put out a video of how to build this Dodger, which, as you can see, is a hard Dodger. So, I had people ask me, how do you actually do it, and do a commentary on how I actually did it. So what I had was a Bimini frame up, or rather a Dodger frame up that was set here without any Dodger on it. The Dodger was destroyed. So what I did was I used the Dodger frame that was here, and I actually took it, set it up like a Dodger would sit here, and took duct tape and taped it from the front bar and to the back bar, and from the back bar down to the bottom. So when I took it out and put it in my garage to work on it, it would actually have the set dimensions just by pulling the bar out. If you leave the little cloth streamers in between there, they're going to move around and everything, and then your Dodger's going to be way off. So that's where I started. So I started with my Dodger frame. So I have a Dodger frame that goes up, and then it had another piece that came off of it like that. So that attached to the boat here. So that's the boat. So what I did was run duct tape back and forth between here and there, and then ran duct tape all the way to the bottom in order to hold it in position, so when I opened it back up in my garage to work on it, to work on the actual hard Dodger, that actually worked as my framework. So what I did was I took it home, I got out a big piece of plywood, and I screwed it down right where you would normally screw it down, and then I expanded it and then tied it down to where my normal Dodger would be up here in the windows and everything, because there were bars there. So now what I did is it would be the frame coming across here and then across there. So what I did was I went to the store and got a door skin. So imagine this is the frame, and I took the door skin, and I was cheap, I only put one on there. So I took that door skin and put it across the frame that I had on top, and then put it down and bent it. And then what I did was I took wire and drilled little holes on the side of the door skin and actually just wired it up. It's the same as kind of what you do on a stitch and glue, but we weren't gluing that, we were using this as a form. So you can do that for the whole thing all the way across if you want to. Try to attach it in the middle and, you know, get out the rough spot because where the two boards attach. But I was lazy and I only did one side at a time. So I did the first side and put it on there as half. The next thing I did was I didn't waste my time fiberglass and the frame board or any of that. I just took and put a piece of plastic on top of it. I had some foam, which is a closed-cell foam, and I'll leave a link to where that is. And that brown foam, I basically set it out in as many pieces as I could. And what I did with that was I started putting the pieces on, and I put the piece on and I would clamp it to wherever I could get. And then as I curved, because it would not curve, I cut smaller pieces, strips going this way. So what I did was I took some West System and some adhesive, I forget what number it is, but the West System additive that's an adhesive, and I made a putty out of it and stuck the pieces together, and I kept going, and each time I clamped each piece on. Even if it was only this thick, I just kept clamping each piece on until I got to a flat piece, and if I got a bigger piece, and that was great, and I clamped it on and stuck it all together. So that formed that piece. So then it really wasn't going to stick to that plastic, and I could pull it off. So once I had the whole thing done one side, you can see how thick this is on the side. It's actually 2 layers of 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch foam. I can't remember. It was about that thick. So what's that, about a 1/2 inch foam, 2 layers of 1/2 inch foam. So I did a layer, and then I turned around and took all that off, took it, set it on the side, and then I took the board off and I put it on the other side, and I did the same thing. So that's why I have an odd little ridge right here from where I glued them together. It made when I stuck them together, it made a little ridge because I put fiberglass over it and seamed it together and everything, which worked out really well. So what I did then was, at that point, I had this upside down. So what I did, in order to maintain, I had to know how far this side was to this side over here on the inside, or rather the outside. So what I did was I went to Lowe's and got one of those straps, and I put the strap all the way around it, and got the strap and tightened it up as it was upside down, and ratcheted that in. And I had 2 of them, one here and one there. I didn't have the front pieces here done yet. I didn't do those yet. So what I did was, at that point, then I had this entire inside as this was sitting upside down, and started gluing in. I glued a runner along here and a runner along there for the second layer of foam. And then what I did was I started cutting out pieces inside. And I did the same thing, except for just gluing the butt ends together this time. I actually glued the butt ends together, and I glued it down to the existing piece of foam as the outer shell. So that rolled it up. And again, little pieces on the curves. And don't make real big pieces. Don't make it so it has an air bubble between the foam. It won't work. You'll have too much resin in there. It'll break. It'll become a little bit brittle. So you want the smaller pieces. You want them set together. Sometimes you have to put when it gets on corners like this, you may have to put a little beveled edge on the corner in order to make it right. It's not going to set up like this on the corners. You have to bevel the edges. So you might come up with a smaller piece. If you put it like that, you see, so the next one, even if you leave that one straight at a 45, the next one you're going to have to put a bevel so that it fits. So you just keep putting the pieces inside there, and that thickens it up to a second part. So since you keep the strap on it, it's okay because it'll stay all as one size. So at that point, what you do is you flip it back over, put it onto your form without the board on it, and then you figure out what your windows are going to be and the round part, and you do the exact same thing on the inside. Now the bottom part up here, as you can see, this is not super big, but it's doubled up. So you butt it against there, glue it on, and then you do the same technique. Now this, because it's so small, will actually flex a certain amount, so you get a certain amount of flex out of it. But just like I said, you have to know where those forward bars are going when you do your frame, these 2 forward bars, and you have to have these taped. Tape it to the top, tape it to the side, tape it however you want, in order when you pull it out, you can see. So now you've got your 2 pieces together. You've got that side and you've got that side, and it's all glued together, doubled up. So you take it back over and put it on top without your board on it. It just has the plastic over the frame. And at this point, you really could care less what happens to the frame unless you're trying to preserve it or not. So what you do then is you start making those little boards for the front, which are these and the bottom. And you can actually, let me get another piece of paper. As it sits, as your pole comes down and it sits and it's glued onto the sides or onto the front, which is your 2 pole bars going down the front, you may have to put a couple of pole bars on the front to do that. Then as you go down, wherever that meets, that'll meet at like a spot. This is like the pole going in to the spot looking down on the board. I don't know if you can see that, probably can't. Okay, as you go down on the board, what happens is you want that to roll like this, and you want it to go out and you want it to roll like that. That's the bottom section down there. So you're going to have another piece that comes up, which is one of the top ones going that way. So what you do is you take little blocks of wood, and you put a little block of wood there, and a little block of wood there, a little block of wood there, and so on all the way around. Little blocks of wood all the way around, and then what you'll do is use that as something to clamp onto for this. Or you can screw it in or whatever you want and build your piece up. And it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. And if you want to, you could put the blocks on the outside and not put the ones on the inside, and then just bend it. And you want to build these blocks up so that it'll lean your piece it'll lean your little piece of foam up against there. I don't know if I got this or not right, so let me do it again. Alright, you got your frame, you build your frame, and that comes from your old bimini. And then you just tape it. This is your front bar, your back bar, your bars going down for the windows that go like that, and that's off your old Dodger. Not bimini, your old Dodger. So what you do is you take any kind of tape. I used, what did I use? I used a very sturdy tape, and just tape between the bars in order to do distances. What that does for you is keeps it from wiggling around. If you just use the cloth pieces, what happens is it'll sag off to the side and you'll never know what the real distance is. So get everything so when you put your frame up without your Dodger, it stiffens up completely. So then you tape it. I tape mine to the floor. And but you could tape it to a piece of plywood that you're working on, a workbench, anything you got. So what you do then is you put your, like I was saying, you put your piece of wood, your door scan, a real light piece of plywood, anything to make it a form, and you just put little holes in it and you patch it right to the top. That would be right up here. So what then you do is you create this with foam, and you just keep making pieces of it. This is the Dodger. You make pieces of it, little pieces with little beveled edges so your ends come together, and you glue these together with West System and an adhesive additive that's mixed in. So then you pull this off, you take the whole piece of wood off and you put it over there, make the form, make that side. Then you completely take the wood away, and you leave the Dodger up there. You put your plastic up so it doesn't destroy your existing, Dodger, your Dodger frame, and you glue these two together. So it's sitting right on top of there. At that point, you can shape the sides, you can shape the front. The bars down there will be there on the Dodger window, but you won't have those pieces on. So what you do at that point is you make your two ends, piece of foam there, and a piece of foam there, and a piece of foam across there, which mine's straight in the front, and then I bent the other ones back. So how I bent the other ones back was, it's sitting on top of the frame, and this is looking down at the Dodger. So the Dodger is up here that I've already made, and this is looking out the front of it. So what I did was, while it was on the piece of plywood, I made little wood blocks and put it up so I could bend those pieces. And then what I did was I screwed them in, and then I started fiberglassing all of the pieces, and this held it up, and you just fiberglass the whole thing across. It's kind of weird, it's kind of tricky. You could do it, there's a lot of different little ways you could do it. That made the bottom part, and then the top part, all I did was just, I set it back after I glued the two big pieces together. I set it back on top of there with the plastic on it and the wood off, and it set perfectly and it was glued together, and I just ran them right down the bars that were already previously there. There were two bars going down on the Dodger frame, so you can make it there. So it's pretty easy. You just double up, you make it the way you want. It's foam, so you could cut it. I would suggest once you get the first layer on, look at the Dodger and shape it the way you want, because it's going to look a little funny, but you've got to have a concept in. You can also do it, I've seen a lot of people do it they buy windows that are glass, you know, with the encase pieces and everything, so you can open them up and all this crazy stuff, and you can actually make it more square in order to fit those windows in. Now this one here, I made just the top, and I made the two pieces across on the bottom, and then I put an extra bar between there because it comes over, and I didn't want to, I don't know, just aesthetically look better. And I actually 5200 with clamps, teak inside so that it would be more sturdy. Now I weigh 280 and I could stand on this, and it's made out of two pieces of foam, and I used you can use finishing cloth on it if that's what wheels your ticket, you know, whatever you want. I used a small amount of finishing cloth on it, put one layer on it, and I was done. And obviously I was having a problem, and I had to move the Dodger, so I went ahead and installed it to see if I liked it or not, and then once it grew on me, I went ahead and finished it. It cost me $600. They're for the windows in the front. They're a tinted strata glass, but each window can individually come off as it wants. I paid another 200 and something for the bimini top to go back off of it. One word of warning is when I made it flat. I put this little ridge on it, and what that did was, what happens is as the boat goes up and down, water comes back and floats right over and goes right down on you. So I put a little ridge here. It also, as you can see, it's flat, but I can bend my fingers right over it. And what that does is two things. One, it's a grab hold, and two, it keeps the rain from coming down in to your cockpit, which worked out really well. So I would suggest putting that on there. And again, all that is when I got through glass in the top, I took a thin piece of foam about that thick, rolled the edges with a little piece of sandpaper. It's really super easy. It's a closed-cell foam. It's the brown stuff. You can make it out of anything. You can make it out of carbon fiber board if you have too much money. And that helped enormously with how it worked. I mean, before it would rain and then it would just rain down. Now it just rains off to the side, and at the moment you can see over there in the corner, you may or may not be able to see that. That over there is my, that's my, how should I say it? My work project for a rain gutter off of the thing. I also rolled the edge on the side over there a little bit, all the way down, in order to make the rain run down. I'm still a work in progress, but it's coming along. But overall, it's not very hard. If you happen to not have a Dodger, old Dodger frame that's up there, and you're starting anew, then what you'll do is you're going to have to make measurements. Now you're going to have to measure from the point here on the outside of it to the point over there on the outside, and figure out how much you want. And then you're going to have to figure out the height from this point up to the height of there, up to the top up there. So that'll give you your measurement across, and from the middle, whatever, it's not flat, it's going to be edged. So you have to figure out from across there, because when you build it, you're going to be on a flat surface. So that's important to know. The actual straight line across here, you can do with a string or whatever, and then figure out how high you want it. And what that's going to do is when you make it in your basement or your wood shop or whatever you're making in your apartment, in your kitchen, whatever you have, this is really, the stink is pretty bad, so I would do it outside or in a garage if I were you. But that will give you that measurement, because when you do that at home, you're going to be doing it off of a flat surface. So you're going to want to know what the very bottom line is on there, from the bottom line to the top. And once you put it on the boat, it'll work out. And So that'll give you that measurement. So what you'll want to do is you want to make a frame. So let me get the camera back over here. So what you want to do is a frame. So roly poly. Oops. It's being attitude. So what you want to do is make a frame. So you're looking at the Dodger roll here on the side. So you mark on a piece of paper, how do I want my Dodger to look? Do I want it up like this? It doesn't look good like that. Or do I want it more like this? A roll. That's what I got. That little bitty roll up there. Not saying I did a professional job, but I'm telling you how you can do it. So what you'll do is you'll take your flat piece of plywood and you'll figure out what your best run is. So you'll make that piece of plywood, you'll make a little piece of wood that's like this, and then you make a little piece of wood that's like this. And what you do is you scarf them together right there in the middle. And that will make you an entire frame. So you'll have an entire frame going on right there. So you'll have an entire frame out of pieces of plywood. It'll make an entire frame. You could take a, whoops, I didn't make it quite even, did I? You can take a board across the bottom and put it on there. That'll make it. You make several of these, so you'll have one setting. This is looking down at it. You'll have one there. You'll have another one here. Hey, what's up? And then what you do is you have your two, and you're looking down at, you're looking at the top going down. You put a piece right across here, and then a little bitty like wood slat thing, and you put them across the top. So it'll be like right here, and you make a little notch right there, and you put it to the next one that's right behind it, and that makes you a frame. Then, just like I did with the Dodger top, what you could do is you put your door skin across the top of that, and you screw it right in, and you have an entire frame if that's what you want. You can make the whole thing, the sides, any way you want it. And then what you're doing is you could do two things. You can fiberglass the entire door skin on the top, and sand it, and then put form release on it when you fiberglass, so that it won't stick to the fiberglass that you put down. Or you could just take a cheap piece of plastic from Lowe's and not fiberglass it at all and set it across the whole thing, and then start working away, which is what I did. It cuts down on mess. It's easier, less stress, less money. So that'll get you your Dodgers. Dodger's very easy to make. You can make it however you want. You can sand it as much as you want. You could be lazy like me and not really do a lot of finishing sanding on it. Just throw it up there to see if it works. Then you can take it off and finish sanding it later. You can see what it looks like. You can put windows in it. You can make it any shape, size, color you want. Dodger's really easy to make. So I hope this clarifies. If you have any more questions, you can always comment me, and I'll try to answer your questions. All right, thank you very much.